Hello.
Hey,
Hey. Welcome to Human Tech, a podcast about the intersection between humans and technology and psychology and other things.
no,
My
you
name's
said it
Guthrie.
right the first time. Oh, no, you didn't.
No, I changed it up. I can change it up. I'm here
Hmm.
with Susan.
Hi, I also interrupted you. You were about to start your little thing, and then I
Yeah,
said hi.
yeah.
So it's my fault. I threw you off.
Yes, yeah, you
Sorry,
did.
sorry about that. Hi, Guthrie. It's good to see you. Good to
Yep,
talk to you.
yep.
And hopefully, we'll get maybe some people will join us and chat and ask questions and so on. I know that you wanted to, for our podcast episode today, you wanted to go back to, we had done like this 2-part series.
Yeah.
And I don't even, what would you call about web? I guess we were calling it Web
Web3,
3.0.
Metaverse, all those, yeah,
Yeah,
that kind of stuff. Yes,
the
this is going to
new,
be part
where we're
three.
headed. Yeah, and you wanted to do a part 3, and I guess I didn't know that. So I actually interrupted us, and last week we did a different topic. And then you said, I want to get back to part 3. So that's what we're going to do today, right?
Yes, and there's
All
going to be
right.
part 4 as well.
I know you just have so much you want to talk about.
Yep.
So, part 3 of this Metaverse and Web 3.0, what is the focus of the topic today?
Yeah. So we ended up, if you recall, we started by just talking about some of the UX problems of VR AR. We talked about a little bit about mental model problems of doing VR AR stuff and the
Virtual
metaverse.
reality and augmented reality.
hmm That was
Mhm.
sort of a broad. That was broad. Part 1, part 2, part 3. We ended up part 2 talking about maybe um, the real killer app when it comes to Web3 is going to be safety and trust.
Well, that's not, what do you mean by killer app? You mean
Well,
killer,
the
really an app, or you mean just the
no,
big
the
issue?
application,
Application.
the
Okay.
the the I don't know, the thing that will
That makes it or breaks it?
no, the service it's providing.
Oh, is what?
Uh, Trust or security on the internet,
Oh, okay. Okay. All right.
safety on the internet, maybe.
Safety on the internet. All right. So is that what we're going to pick up on today?
Yes. Yep.
All
That's where
right.
we're starting off.
Where do you want to start this conversation? Well, where do you
Well,
want to take this conversation?
um, I guess I'll start by talking about Stadia, which is Google's cloud streaming video game platform.
Suppose
Uh,
there that's Stadia.
yeah, Stadia.
That was announced actually several years ago.
Yeah, it's been around.
Is anybody doing anything with it? Does it like I haven't heard much about it lately.
Okay. So I'm not going to do a whole thing about Stadia
Okay.
because it's just an example.
Okay.
Stadia, for those of you who don't know, you can play video games on a device like your
Okay.
computer or a cell phone or a
Yeah.
console.
Okay.
But there is no real reason why there can't be a server farm somewhere that's running an instance of something, and that instance is running a video game. That video game is then packaged up as a video stream, like you were watching Netflix,
Okay.
and streamed to your device, whether it's a phone or TV or
Okay.
monitor. So what it does is it basically, when you move your mouse, the software sends that to your instance in a server somewhere. It moves it in the game, and then it sends you the response back.
Okay.
The benefits of this is that you can run very high resolution games on low end hardware, right? Because you're literally just watching a video,
Yeah.
and then sort of moving your mouse and keyboard, and it's just sort of responding to you. You're just playing games very, very remotely. And in theory, you could also unlock maybe I would say, some unique experiences. So imagine right now, the way like multiplayer games work is everyone's running it on their own computer, and then all that data has to be collected at a central hub that then sort of sends it back. And so it's a hub and spoke system. And that has certain limitations uh, that you run into. Um, there are problems about cheating and that kind of stuff. So it's restrictive. Whereas in theory, if you were running everything on one server together and then just sending each player like a camera view of what they're doing, you could unlock all these other experiences because you're leveraging all the computing power of all these different
Okay,
servers.
I kinda understand.
That was the theory. There are a couple problems with this in practice. The first one being latency. How
Mm,
can your video game be as responsive if you're sending a signal hundreds of
right.
miles away and then it has to turn around and
Waiting
send
for
it
it to
back?
come back. Yeah.
Right. So that's part one. And part two is it's uh, video games are made to be played on individual computers or consoles. They weren't
Okay.
made to be played on some server in the cloud.
Okay.
So you have to convince video game developers to jump on board with this,
Oh, okay. All
right?
right.
And that has its own, much like Netflix trying to get movie rights. You can't. It's not like Netflix
That
can
doesn't
snap.
happen. Yeah. Okay.
Imagine if Netflix wanted every single YouTube video to be on Netflix instantly.
Yeah.
Even if even
It's
if
going to take
business
a
wise
while.
they could make it happen, you
It
can't
would
just
still
snap your
take a while.
fingers. There's stuff that has
Yeah.
to happen in the background. Okay, so with all that aside, there are a couple other major players in this space. There is Microsoft, who has a huge cloud computing business platform and also has Xbox, so they have history with games. There's Amazon, but they have a toe in it. They're not, they're thinking about it, but they have Amazon Web Services, which is a huge, cloud computing platform. There's Nvidia, who literally just makes graphics cards. So in theory, they would have expertise making good hardware, and they're well connected in the game industry. And then so Google is like, we're gonna step in here. So I bring this whole thing up because at launch, Google said, "Hey, we're gonna make this awesome platform. We have the best network nodes in the world. No one else has this. We can provide lower latency than any of the rivals." And again, latency is sometimes an issue. It's not terrible, but it's not great. Um, but so we can provide these unbelievable latencies that's as good as playing on your computer. Um, One of the ways they did this is you had to buy we didn't have to, but generally you bought a controller that wasn't connected to your computer. It was connected straight to the internet. So
Okay.
instead of having to send your mouse movement through your mouse to your computer, and then from your computer through some software, and then from some software to the internet, and then the internet over to Google servers, you were playing on a little device that sent it
That
straight
was
to Google
right in.
servers.
Okay.
So, anyway, so they had all this stuff. Okay, so that was the first thing that they said. The second was, we're going to have all your favorite games. It'll be all this stuff. It'll be really easy. Blah blah blah. To just sort of jump on, and you'll have all your games wherever you want it. I'm paraphrasing. It's not exactly what it said, but there was an implication that there'd be lots of games. They were going to develop their own games,
Yeah.
so there would be a whole new game studio. Um, and then the third thing that they said is that you'd be able to play at really high resolutions.
Okay.
They mentioned that an elite tier that was going to come really soon. That was 4K, 120 hertz.
Okay.
Um, so it's years later. The game studio is already shut down. Um, they apparently fired everyone. It takes years to make a video game.
Yeah.
They fired people for a couple months, hired people for a couple months, and then sent them all home. They Their latency latency is not any better than any of their other competitors, so that didn't happen. Their if you bought in order to play games on their platform, unlike other platforms, you had to buy the games on Stadia. So if you bought games on Stadia, you can't play them anywhere else,
Okay.
right? So it's not like you can buy a game on Stadia and then if it shuts down, you can just go play it on your computer. So
Okay,
if you
but wait. So you're describing like these really bad you're describing a company who decides to go in one direction and makes all these promises and has all this hype around it and then doesn't actually do it.
Yeah, and so it's years later. They're still. I don't even think they do 4K 120 hertz yet. They still do only
Well,
4K
are they
60.
still supposedly doing anything? Why?
Yeah, and so the big story is, well, now they're going to white label it. So like imagine if you're like a startup and you want to do some sort of cloud gaming thing, you can like Amazon Web Services, you could just buy their server time. They're going
Okay,
to
so
turn Stadia
you
into
call
buy like
this
game play server
Battery
time.
World,
Yeah,
and
something like that.
but
So yeah,
you'd actually be using their
it's called
Stadia
yeah,
stuff.
it's I believe it's called white labeling,
Yeah.
right? So
Okay. All right.
it's done by Google, but it doesn't have their
All
name
right.
on it.
But I gotta ask you, why are we talking about this?
So this is a perfect example
Yeah.
of
Of
the severe mistrust that, especially with big tech companies, that their customers have been dealing with for a long time. And it really hurts the adoption of a new platform.
okay. So let me make sure I get this right. You're saying when you make all these announcements and you get people to, sign up and you spend money and whatever, but then you don't you don't follow through with it and you kind of leave it in the state of limbo, which is kind of where it is right now,
And then it'll shut down in a couple of years.
then you're saying that it makes people, it kind of furthers this idea that you can't trust tech companies. Is that what you're saying?
And not just tech companies, but yes, any companies that seem to be doing anything in software, especially.
So now tell me how this connects to our previous conversations. Are
Yeah.
you saying
Yeah.
that Facebook announces the metaverse, but everyone is like, yeah, right, because of instances like Stadia and others, we just kind of
Yes.
roll our eyes. Okay, all right, so we're
Well,
skeptical.
so yeah, I'll spell this out a little bit. The the idea of having a platform, the whole point is that you need people to be on the platform for the platform to be successful.
You mean like Metaverse or Stadia
Yeah.
or
Yeah, if you're the only person
Facebook or
around,
anything
right?
else?
The, these platforms
Twitter.
only have value if there's a critical mass of people using it.
Okay.
And there is something about the startup culture in Silicon Valley
Yeah.
that I think that's fueling a lot of this, which is you just do something, MVP, minimal viable product. We'll just put it out there,
Fake it till you make it.
fake it till you make it. Um,
Except you can't. I mean,
well, hold on.
Facebook.
No. You put a minimal viable product.
Yes.
You're running on.
Yes.
We've talked to enough
You're running
people
on fumes.
at these big tech companies.
Yeah.
These projects are horrendously understaffed. They're
Yeah.
wildly ambitious. The timetables are, 40% optimistic all the time about what
Right.
it really
Right.
do. And the whole point is, well, we'll just do this, and if it doesn't work,
Who
no big deal.
cares?
It's like a startup, right? We'll try it. If it doesn't go viral and get big and go rich, we'll just shut it down
So
and we'll
you're
just try it again.
saying that the whole startup culture actually is not just with startups, it's also with the big tech
That's my
companies.
theory. That's my theory. So if you look at, and I had you make a little list there. Um, there are so many there are so many tech companies who they stand up at this big presentation and it's all glitzy and you have the COO or whatever, the president of blah blah blah, stands up and make these claims about how cool and revolutionary all
This
their stuff is.
visionary idea is.
Well,
You may be
sometimes they Steve Jobs it up a little bit, but sometimes even if it's not like blazing the future, if it's more
okay.
straightforward in tone, they still promise a lot.
Okay.
So, for example, there's a running joke in which since 2016, basically, Tesla has been selling self-driving mode in their cars, which would unlock full autonomous driving
So
for
if
the
you
most
buy a
part.
Tesla now,
And you buy the upgraded package.
you're buying the ability to have a
See,
self-driving car later when it becomes legal
yes,
and all of that.
and there are tiers of self-driving.
Isn't that true?
Let's just assume it's the next level, the next tier up.
Okay.
No, it's not
It's
true.
not true?
Well, they have one tier, but the
Okay.
full tier, which is what was promised, and then your Tesla would become a taxi, and you'd be able to make money in the
Right.
spare time.
Okay.
There's a clip of him saying in interviews that they were about a year away, and he said that since 2016.
Okay, yeah, but does anyone believe Elon Musk? I mean, really?
Okay,
Ever?
this is my point. There
What?
was a time when the answer was yes, and
Oh,
Teslas are cool, and they are revolutionary in many
I would
aspects.
take one if you want to give me one.
Sure, yeah. So the idea that this claim, which seemed to be really cool and ahead of what everyone else was doing, and I like I said, I'm sure that I'm not even saying he lied. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that the people at Stadia lied. I'm not even sure there's any. I'm sure in some cases there's sort of malpractice where they're just trying to, catch everyone's attention by saying, "Oh, it'll do X and Y" when they know it won't. I think that
Yeah,
a lot of times
they
they're being
think it'll
told
happen.
that these executives they want to climb the ladder. There's a lot of politicking going on. They are being told rosy pictures by people, other, yes people who just want to inflate their egos, and they're saying, "Oh yeah, we can do this. It'll be
Okay, okay,
hardware."
but I'm going to come back and ask you, what, yeah, this is what business is all about. So what?
But it's really not. I don't know if this is always true.
So do you
Like,
think, all right, so this is a
okay,
problem?
well, so let's say you're buying a blender,
Yes.
okay, for most of your life, right? Think of all the blenders
Yes.
that you could have bought.
Yes.
What happens is a company announces a new blender,
Yeah.
and they say, "Hey, we got a new blender. It's
Yeah.
5% better blades, and it's got one more horsepower, and it's a newer
Yep.
design,
Yep.
and it's for sale now, and you can buy it." And the blender that we have for sale right now is the thing that you purchase, and it doesn't
Okay.
change because it's a blender.
Okay.
So you have some confidence that this it's like what they are selling to you
Is what you're
most of the
getting.
time is the thing that you get with cars. Okay, through most of the time, ignore the software part. But if they're like, our cars have LED lights and they have a sunroof,
And
and
they do have LED lights
when
in
you
the
buy the
sunroof.
car, those are the things on the car, are
Okay.
the things that
So
are announced that are on the
so
car.
so basically you're saying, well, I'm still trying to figure out. I get what you're saying. You're saying the MVP stuff is just messing things up.
It seems to happen mostly on a software side because the software is like, oh, we'll figure it out, we'll implement it as we go along.
Yeah. Because you're
We'll
not
fill in the holes.
manufacturing an actual thing,
Right. And so it allows
a
companies
physical
to
thing.
spend not very much, say all these things that are really
Okay.
cool, and
Okay.
then
But
not actually do it.
right. So, but I'm going to push you. Well,
Mhm.
why is this a problem?
So it's a problem because it erodes consumer trust. The list of products that Google has announced, especially platforms, and then after a few years get changed, shuttered, shut down. It's a complete graveyard. It's amazing. I mean, they've had, I think, like 13 messenger apps that they've created by now.
So it's
It,
kind of like, do you know that the fable about crying wolf?
I think everyone knows that one.
So it's like they're crying wolf.
Yeah, they keep saying,
So
"Hey, this is
now
our
they
big
do it
thing."
again, and so you're saying that there's have we reached the point where we just kind of like don't believe them anymore?
Yes, and it's really starting to happen in a lot of places.
Is
So
it
do you know?
just Google?
No, of course not. So do you know Kickstarter?
Kickstarter, yeah,
People
kind of.
fund projects. People are like,
Yeah,
"Here's this
yeah,
cool project," and then they fund it.
yeah.
And there are a lot of really successful Kickstarters. I back a lot of Kickstarters. Not a
Okay,
lot, but from time to time. I mostly back creative Kickstarters, like if someone's making a board game or something.
okay.
A lot of the software stuff that's on there has a very, very bad reputation where it's like, here's this cool thing and we're shipping it in 2019, right?
And then they
And
don't.
then in 2021, it finally ships. It has half of the features it was supposed to have, and by the time it ships, it's the rest of the competition is caught up to it. But you've already paid your money, so you're sort of stuck with it. Oh, and then in 2 years they'll shut the servers down and
Sounds
it'll
like
be
a very
useless.
good scam.
Well, this is it. I mean, a number of my favorite YouTubers, it's gotten so bad that anytime they review a Kickstarter project, they say, "Look, we're reviewing this. It's really cool. Dot dot dot. But this is Kickstarter. We say, like we'll believe it when we see it, and
Hmm.
you really shouldn't invest in it. You should only invest in this if you are willing to take the risk that you will not receive this product." And Kickstarter's working on ways to overcome that, but that is,
Okay, so what you're saying is there's
yeah,
a large number of organizations and companies,
especially big tech ones.
big, especially big tech, that are using the MVP model and not living up to promises, and therefore consumer trust in these big tech companies
And the promise and
is
the projects and the promises they make.
is eroding.
Yes. And there's one
Okay.
huge exception to this list.
Okay, so and I'm going to guess you're not saying that Facebook or Metaverse is the exception.
No. No.
Okay, so Facebook and Metaverse goes in there. All right. Google, we know, is on the list. We
It's
talked
Apple.
Microsoft. Oh, not Microsoft.
It's Apple.
Apple,
Apple says they're going to release a product. They
and they
do it.
do,
They say it's going to be like magic. It's just going to work for
and
this
it
small little feature, right? Like you can copy an iMessage
whatever
between
it
device or
is,
whatever it is, right? And
and it
within a
does.
year, the thing
Okay,
generally
so what
happens.
do you have any? Well, it's not like you have insight inside these companies, but why is Apple not doing what everybody else is doing in terms of that?
I think it's because Apple has a vision and they decide what the vision is and they enact the vision and they don't care about any of the steps in between. And for their most part, their vision is not dependent on anyone else. It's not dependent on customers liking things. It's not dependent on some sort of big social media platform. There are exceptions
Hmm.
that have not worked and have shut down. I can think of, and that's generally when they tried to get into platforming.
Do
But
you
it's
think
like,
that part of the reason this is true is because their stuff is so tied to hardware?
yes,
It's
absolutely.
not like just software.
Though mostly what they do is really good software, right? But
Software,
yeah, I mean the vast majority of the interactions people have,
but it's always tied to their particular
they're
hardware.
hardware. But when they were selling, let's just take the years they were selling Intel MacBooks.
Yeah.
It was just a computer. it
Right.
was using 95% off the
Yeah.
shelf parts. It was an Intel, it was,
Yeah.
it was functionally, it could run Windows. It was functionally the same as any other laptop. And so what really was nice is they had um, really tight software integration with that hardware. And now
Okay.
they're doing their own thing with their own kind of custom hardware, but they're still using an ARM processor.
Yeah.
Like my Samsung, it uses an ARM processor. They're using a modified version of a ARM design. So
So
it's
do you
not
think
like
it's
it's
a
the same
so
instruction set.
so
It's
do you
not
think
like it's
it's a
made out of
so you think it's a
bubbles.
corporate culture thing then?
Potentially. Yep.
Hmm.
It's like we're going to make a product and think of their support, right? Like you can have an uh I got a friend who has a 2015 laptop,
Yeah.
MacBook laptop. It runs the exact same software as every other Mac does. It's been
Yeah.
7 years now,
Yeah.
right? Still getting regular updates on the newest software. So when they put a product when they are creating a product, when they're creating software, they're like, this will be around for a decade.
So you're saying I shouldn't have given up all my Apple stuff and gone Windows and Android. I should
No,
have
no,
stayed
I'm
with
not.
Apple, or I
I'm
should
not
switch
saying
to
that.
Apple. And
Well,
I
they had.
shouldn't have sold my Apple stock either.
Well, there's a problem with the Apple stock that's on you, but the the problem is that sometimes that vision also has to be right. And there was a time when their vision was making the consumer worse off.
Hmm.
Generally they have this vision, and it's because this is going to enable really, really cool experiences. But for our customer, right? We're putting our customer
Yeah.
first, but it's an envisioned customer of the future, not necessarily the customer of the present.
Okay.
So in this time period you were talking about, um, they went through a little bit of a lull where their products were not up to par
Yeah. Yeah.
with the competition. One of the reasons that they weren't up to par is that they were developing. My understanding is that they were trying to make this laptop for the chips they were going to make 5 years from now. They knew they were going to make the switch, so they
Yeah.
started making these, what I would say is maybe underpowered laptops for the designs,
Yeah.
because they knew they had this really efficient, really chip coming in the future, so that when the chip was ready, the hardware package would be ready.
Okay. All right. But I'm gonna interrupt you here.
Anyways, the point is people really trust Apple because when they implement something, some people may not like it. Some people may say it's silly. Some people may like it,
I mean, you do
but it's
realize
not vaporware.
you're you
It's going to
you do
exist.
realize you're the one that talked me out of all my Apple technology.
I will, but I'll give you another example though
What?
that stays around pretty well, and that is Microsoft corporate.
Oh, so you talked me out of my Apple stuff to go Microsoft corporate, and you say wasn't a bad decision.
Microsoft, when it comes to running software, is pretty impressive. You can basically, on a computer from 2022, run software from like the 90s, which is pretty impressive. You,
Yeah, but why would you want to do that? That's the question.
well, yeah. The point is that, like, do you have faith that Microsoft will be supporting PowerPoint in a couple years?
I do.
Right? Like,
All
are they
right.
going to
So,
shut down
all right. Then I'm
their
going to
Exchange
come. Then, all
servers?
right. Now I'm going to push you. So,
They
okay.
don't
So
do a whole lot because
the
they're really, really
question
conservative.
is, so consumers are losing trust in large tech companies, especially large tech platforms. And then I'm going to ask you, so what?
Okay, thank you, thank you.
You're welcome. Why are you thanking me?
Well, I mean, keeping me on track. It's good.
Keeping you on track. Yeah. So what?
So
Why do we care?
why do we care? So one of the things is that now, especially with it's almost like a crypto culture,
Mm-hmm.
which is so Facebook is doing their metaverse, which is sort of what we're talking about, or anyone doing their metaverse. It is very platform oriented. It requires that you and all your friends are on this platform.
Yep.
And so another tech company is like, oh, look at this cool thing. It's going to revolutionize X and Y, and it's going to do all this stuff, and you should get on. It's going to be great, and there's not going to
Mm-hmm.
be any problems. It's just going to work, and we're going to
Mm-hmm.
put in time and resources, and it'll be open source and platform based, and blah blah blah. And like all the consumers, not necessarily on the business side, but regular kind of individual consumers, after years of being having the rug pulled from under us. And by the way, that's literally one of the scams. It's called a rug pull.
Okay.
That's the name of the thing
Okay.
in which you
You,
say all these really amazing stuff. You get a bunch of investor money,
and then
and then you
you
just run away and you pull
disappear.
the rug out and you just shut everything down,
Okay.
and just disappear. So yeah, like you know, after time and time and time and time again of these projects being overpromised, underdelivered, undersupported. Let's take video games, for example, because the metaverse is going to be very much like a video game. In fact, a
Yeah.
lot of the software is very similar.
Yeah.
Video games, when I was growing up, when they launched, they would have a couple bugs and then they get fixed.
Yeah.
There are so many video games from big publishers that when they launch are horrendously buggy, like unplayable. And
Okay.
it takes
Okay.
months
All
to
right. All
fix.
right. So now I have to ask you some other questions.
Well, so um, can you just look at that list that I gave you before we move on?
Yes,
Because I wanted to make
you
sure
gave
I
me
wanted.
this list. I didn't know what I was. You said write this down before we
Yeah,
got on air, which I did. But now I'm beginning. Okay. But don't forget that I
just
have a bigger question to
yeah,
ask
yeah,
you.
yeah. But just list the names of things. I just want to make sure I
Okay.
listed
The
all the
names of
trust
things
problems.
were Google Stadia,
Yeah, we did that one.
Tesla Autopilot,
Yeah, we did that one.
Kickstarter,
We did that one too.
and then I don't know how to pronounce it. OIUYA.
Yeah, so that was another. Hey, we're gonna be a video game platform. You should come to us. And then not enough people did it, and then just shut down again.
And then game developers, it said.
Yeah, there's been so many. Like I just said, there's been a lot of video games that were very much hyped,
And
and
that's the list. But so all right, so now I have a question for you.
mhm.
Because you were kind of, you were talking about large tech companies and platforms and trust, but this whole idea of the of the startup mentality of the MVP, that is not just with that part of the industry. That is
Very
now
true.
permeated all through very normal conservative corporate companies. I mean, we work with clients who are talking all the time about, you know, let's do an MVP and let's use this, lean process because we're going to create an MVP. And um, so, and in some ways, I think, or maybe not just some ways, the whole agile process is all about kind of creating MVP. I mean, you put something out there and then we'll change it. Put something out there and then we'll change it. So is this but let's not talk about agile. Let's just focus on the MVP part. Do you think this is a problem with, do you think this problem with the MVP culture and the lack of trust it might engender is not just a large tech platform problem? Is it a risk for everyone else that's on the train?
Sure. So I think when it comes to trust and when it comes to your customers and community, I think what's important is it's like it's not like there's nothing inherently wrong with an MVP product. The thing that
Okay.
happens that's wrong is what you're telling the customer.
That they don't think it's an MVP. They think it's a product.
There is a way to say a product is at an early stage, and it's called a beta. And there used to be beta software where they're like, hey, we're trying stuff,
Yep.
you should understand that this might not be the finished product. Like, it might change. Like, there's at least the customer understands that there is some risk there. When was the last time you ran into a beta software?
Yeah, I used to get these, do you want to be part of our
The
beta
beta
group? And
program.
you were then
Yeah.
part of a special group of people that was trying out this new thing, and you knew it was beta.
But the beta generally was basically the same as the published software, just a little rougher.
Yes.
Now those programs, which are called like insider programs or whatever, they're
Yeah.
basically an alpha. Like, it's like the program doesn't even run yet. Like, like you can't even use it. It's so raw. So what was the alpha became the beta, and what was the beta became the first couple months of release.
Okay, so what do you think should be done? If you were, okay, if you were, and I understand you're not, but if you were, some high level corporate person at, let's say not, well, you can answer this question in multiple ways. So I'll let you decide. Do you want to, and you can take all these routes, but you get to decide which one first. So you can tell me if you were a high level corporate person at Facebook and, on the metaverse thing, and given what you just said about consumers and trust eroding and everything, what would you do? Or you can answer the question if you were not at a large corporate, but at, a startup, what would you do? And then, or you can answer, which is maybe the one I'm actually most interested in, but probably you're not. If you were, VP of whatever at not a tech startup and not a big tech company, but just, a regular company where MVP has already infiltrated as the way to go, what would you do? And which one of those three are you going to answer as? Or is it all
Oh,
three?
it's too late.
Guthrie, what do you mean it's too
Okay.
late?
Are there any brands that you
Yeah.
trust?
Are there any brands of anything that I trust?
Yes.
Yes.
Where you trust that if they released a new product, you're like, this will probably be of good quality.
I do. There
Name
are.
one or two.
I would name. This is going to be so weird. I would name
Doesn't have to be software.
Medtronic. I would name Medtronic, and I would name Hamilton Beach.
Okay. Anything else?
Oh, there you want more? Yeah, there's probably, I would probably name Patagonia and Eddie Bauer. I mean, essentially, I'm going to name all the companies that I buy stuff from.
Okay, so let's pick one of those. Let's pick like the Patagonia. How many years have you had a relationship with Patagonia?
It's interesting. I don't have a big personal relationship with Patagonia because they tend to make clothing that doesn't fit me. But my relatives have a very strong relationship with them, and I have seen, so I buy Patagonia as a present
How
for
about
my
how about Eddie
husband.
Bauer?
All right, Eddie
How
Bauer,
how long have you been buying Eddie Bauer things?
uh, 20 years or
Okay.
so.
The relationships that
Yeah,
companies have with their customers
yeah,
is not an MVP relationship. Like, the it takes years of trust of companies saying we're going to launch this product and then doing it and following through on it.
yes,
And if you are a new company or there's a new customer, they're bringing with them all their expectations of all the previous interactions that they've had.
With you
So
or with other companies?
with other companies. So if you're a new social media company,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You maybe are doing everything the right way, but your
Oh, I
customers'
see.
expectations
Is
are
that you're going to be just
a
like so and
decade
so?
of feeling like you've had the rug pulled out and the bait and switches. And oh wait, you're actually selling all my data and that's how you make money? Oh wait, my information's not actually that private. Oh wait, I put all this time into this video game and now it's just shutting down. Um,
Do
well,
you
you
think
promised
it?
all this stuff and then
Mm,
half of it never happened. So it's like, so you're what, like the time frames that companies what there are two things companies are not really realizing. The first is the cost on their customers. If you roll out a new, let's just say you roll out, let's say you do like industrial software, okay? We'll pick something really obscure. And you roll out a new version to your customers, and they have to relearn all the stuff because it's totally different, right? And then in 18 months, you go, didn't really work. We're changing it all over again. And you roll out a totally different version. Like, there is so much time and effort that goes into learning new stuff. It is a cost that you are passing on to your customers. And the customers feel that cost. And that's why in the corporate world, it rarely happens, usually to the detriment, where stuff never changes because they don't want to, anger any legacy customers. And that's sort of a problem
that's
for
another problem.
it's problem in the opposite direction. That's why the corporate world is so conservative, because it's a real cost to relearn. But on the corporate side, not on the corporate side, but on the individual side, the consumer side, there's a huge cost to relearn too. I had the Google Pay app. Okay, it worked. It was fine. I didn't use it very much, but it was fine. They, after 2 years, they decided to totally redo it because they wanted it to have a global network that was mostly based on the India payment of SMS. It's a long story. You can read about it. Ars Technica has some good articles about it. Anyways, so then I got a thing. Hey, you have an update, and you have to set it all up again and relearn, and it works differently. Like, that's a cost to me. I had to spend time doing that. I remember sitting at
Mm,
a gas station, setting up my
mm-hmm,
Google Pay again,
mm-hmm.
and so I was like, okay, so like there's a cost to your customer if you just keep making them do all
And
the
I
stuff.
think, and I think another thing that might happen that I've noticed is that, like I use the Hamilton Beach example, and that's interesting because uh, over the years, Hamilton Beach, they make blenders and, tea kettles and that kind of stuff. They've been around for a very long time. And over the years, I'm sure I've had a Hamilton Beach something or other, right? But they were never top of mind for me, like I wouldn't say, oh, I'm loyal to him. If I had to buy one of these appliances, I wouldn't have normally thought, oh, let's see what Hamilton Beach has, right? But there was another brand that I did feel that way about, and I bought one of their products, and I lived with it for years, and it was always a terrible product. Like it just was problems and problems and problems, and then finally it just broke, and I had to replace it. And at that point, is like I'm not buying that brand again, and that's when I went to Hamilton Beach. But the reason I'm telling you this whole story is, we unboxed the Hamilton Beach product. It looked it made us it was sturdy and simple, and we had like this instant confidence, like we didn't have to learn anything new. We just plugged it in and pushed the button and voila, and instantly, it's like I think our our willingness to give it a try, to try it out, to is like, no, I'm not willing to do that. It's like, if it works instantly, then I'm on board. But if it doesn't, I don't have patience. I will give up, you know. But it's a two-way sword, because I'm very impatient, and my loyalty will disintegrate now quickly. On the other hand, my loyalty will be instantly there and strengthened if you very quickly do what I expect. I think we've become, or maybe it's just me, very impatient. Like you said, it's like, what? I have to go through and set this all up again? No.
There's so many bad UX
Yeah,
experiences
and
we
I'm
have
not. Yeah,
where we
I
have to
just
learn so many new
right, and
systems and so many
really
apps, troubleshoot all the time.
every time you're asked to learn, you're really asking someone to commit. And that's interesting. I don't know that we realize that when we're doing design and when we're doing these products, that you're not just asking people to spend a little bit of time, because if it's
A
2
toaster,
minutes, that
that's a
might
little
be,
bit of time.
yeah, it might be, like, you think it's a little bit of time, but add it up with all the other products and services and software and sign-ins and logins and setup
Passwords, cloud
that
accounts.
we all have to do every day. uh it does become too much. And I think that either companies don't understand that, or they know it, they just can't figure out how to solve it,
But
you
they
know?
also, well, but you got to remember, you got to think of it like a company. They're not, they're there to sell a product, and the product has to have certain features. And so they're there to implement the features, you know? And that's all they're trying to do
But
is
the whole thing of onboarding, I hate that phrase, but the whole thing of onboarding uh, becomes very critical. And in this day, I'm
there's
thinking
so much
about
of it.
I'm thinking, I have in mind, and I won't say who it is, but I just have in mind a particular product slash software product slash service that's out there, um, that over the years has become more complicated and less easy to use, and but at the same time has many competitors now, where when they started, they were the only game in town. So okay, it was pretty easy, and they were the only ones. Over the years, their features have grown, so now it's not easy, and they haven't paid attention to the user experience as they've added on all these features. So now you have a kind of large, complicated piece of software that's always changing, coupled with a lot of competitors that have entered the market. And I think it's a problem for this brand. I think they're losing uh, market share, partly because there's competitors, but also partly because, yeah, if you don't sign on for a month, when you sign on, you look at it and it's like, yeah, this is part of software as a service, right? I mean, I used to buy the software and put it on my computer, and when I opened it next time, it would look and act the same. And now it's in the cloud. I sign in, and you look at it and you go, what the heck is this?
All your preferences have been reset.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of weeks might go by, and it's like, it looks like and it's like, oh man, are you kidding? How do I do XYZ? I always used to just push this button, and now it's not there. It's not in the menu it was in before. The menu looks different.
So
Makes me crazy.
I wonder if this is a pendulum thing, because the reason that companies are doing this MVP thing is because it worked. If you go out there and you say, "Oh, our product has this feature and this feature and this feature, and it does this other thing, and no one else is doing it at 4K," and like there's all this stuff, and so people go out there and they be like, "Wow, well, why would I get this old one when there's this new one that's new and revolutionary and blah blah blah," and it does seem to work. It's been getting these companies market share. But I wonder if the pendulum is now starting to shift. And one of the big things that happens in corporate decision making is they do, or just in general, people do not understand the time frames that changes take place, that mental model shifts take place in. Companies rarely can think past 2 years. And some of these things, like trust it, like, do I trust a company? Am I willing to go in with an open mind? Like, these things take decades of experience and interaction to change and make opinions on. And like, it may take decades to change it again. So you have to think on these really, really long time frames that most companies refuse to think about. It's like 2 week sprints, 6 month sprints. I mean, it's just these microscopic.
Quarterly shareholder
Yeah, right. And it's all
report.
trying to keep the share price up, and there's a whole capitalism aspect of it. Like, get the money now while you can get the money, and who cares about what happens later? And a lot of customers end up getting burned, but the company doesn't care. They got their money, they got out. They like Facebook, right? They got huge on Facebook. They've been squeezing it to within an inch of its life with ads all over the place. And with that money, they still have Facebook, but then they bought Instagram and they bought Oculus and they started the Metaverse. You squeeze all the money out over here, you wring it out, and maybe you've killed that product. But with that
You're
money,
really depressing me, Guthrie.
you go and you diversify in a bunch of other different spaces,
Now I'm just getting
and then
depressed.
you just keep doing that, and you can kind of make money forever. Anyways, okay. Well, the
Thank
point
you
is,
for this uplifting conversation.
yeah. I don't. The point is that there was a long time where people were sort of like, when are they going to stop getting away with this?
Yeah.
And now I really feel like that's sort of like the tide is starting to change. You
So
have
if you're one of these companies, what should you do? What's your advice? Putting you on the spot here. He's thinking.
what am I doing? What am I?
Okay. I come to you and I say, Guthrie, I listened to your podcast episode and I think you really are onto something. And we at our company we're all involved in this MVP
Well,
and
again, you can do MVP, but like, what is it? What is your goal as a company? You know,
uh, all right. I come to you
is
and
there
I
a product
say,
you're trying to launch?
I'm concerned about loyalty, and we have all these changes we're making and all these new products we're planning on launching, and now I'm worried that we're gonna create launch fatigue with our customers. What should I do?
Well, I'll say, you have a MVP startup culture, and you spent years cultivating, and now that's your
Yes,
culture. So there's nothing you can do.
there's nothing I can do. I told you I was depressed. I don't
Um,
know. I don't know if I believe you.
Start supporting every single product you launch for 10 years.
There you go. Thank you.
No one's going to do it. It'll cost you a fortune. It'll cost you an absolute fortune to support a product for 10 years. That's why no one does it. What's really expensive? Maintaining code for a dwindling base of customers.
Mm,
Keeping customer support on for a long
mm.
time. Spending a lot of time, you know, um, making sure. One second, you talk. I got a package.
Okay. He just had his doorbell ring. So I guess he's got a package delivery. And so now he makes me talk all by myself. Okay. Well, I don't agree with him that there's nothing you can do. And I guess I would say if I were at one of these companies, what I would do. Oh, there you are. I was going to say if I were at one of these companies, I don't agree with you that it's hopeless, but that's just what I would say. I think that I would start to have a conversation about are we, for anything new that we're developing and anything we have out there, are we willing to commit to a 10-year support? And if we're not,
And the
then
answer
we
is no for
then we
everyone.
need then we need to rethink what we're doing. That's what I would say. But it's easy for me to say because I
Well,
don't have to
there
spend
are
the
the
money,
problem is, and it's the same problem that you see in basketball. So
which is what.
in the NBA, there are these general managers, and they're the ones who like make trades and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And they're under this pressure to do a good
Yeah,
job,
I know. I
right?
know.
And so for most of them, not all, because some of them have the support of the owners for a long time. Most of them, I mean, coaches and GMs get fired like every 3 years.
Yes.
You know, they're just searching for the next,
The next big
Steve
star.
Kerr, the
Yeah.
next Sam
Yeah.
Presti, the next. And so I'm the GM of a team, and I can get a player right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Now it requires that I trade a
Yeah.
draft pick I have in
Yeah.
2027.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not going to be here in 2027.
Yeah.
That's not my problem.
Interesting.
So you make the trade, you get all these great players together. It's like, okay, well, 5 years from now, whoever's the GM has no draft picks. They're not going to have any good players. They're basically in a wilderness now. But
Right.
that's not my problem because I'm
Right.
not going to be here. And so if I'm an exec of a company, like, what
Although
do I?
some execs stay around.
Yeah, but even if they stay around, like, what do I care that in 8 years from now there are now more customers that are slightly more loyal to us as a brand because of the
Okay,
support
Guthrie,
and the trust we've
seriously,
developed.
this is you're being very pessimistic, but we have to stop this conversation because we've hit
Well,
our
we got a couple more minutes.
we don't have too many more minutes. I think we've hit
We gotta wrap
our
up.
yeah. So I don't know.
Okay,
I
here's my summary. Here's my summary. I think
summary.
there are
Go
very
ahead.
good reasons for all of this.
Yes.
There are very good reasons because MVP is very cheap. That's the whole thing.
Yes.
It's cheap on development time.
Yeah.
It's cheap on UX resources. Think of all the
Yeah.
UX work you don't have to do.
Yeah.
It's amazingly cheap and is a certain percentage of MVP stuff that's a home run.
Yeah.
That is viral, that you just knock it
Yeah.
out of the park. And
Yeah.
for very little investment, you
Right.
have this huge growth segment.
It's an
You know,
engine. Yeah.
we have this we have a client who has a project that it was this small little thing that just sort of came out of sort of a, well, let's just give it a try, and it might turn into this big opportunity for them with this opens up a whole new customer base, and
Yeah.
it all came out of just an MVP, like, let's just try something and
Yeah.
figure it out. So there is a small chance that it works out, and if it works out, you're a hero and you get a promotion, and now you're in charge of this big new land
Thing.
expanse
Yeah.
manifest destiny thing. Um, so it's companies are making riskier and riskier products.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
that's sort of
That's your summary.
that's my big summary. So how does that then just interact with Web3 and the metaverse? You have a population that has been primed with really not trusting these rollouts,
Okay.
where platforms, they get set up, a bunch of money gets sunk into them, they don't
And
work,
then they
close,
disappear.
and they disappear. So why should I go into Facebook's metaverse, spend a bunch of money on avatars or all this stuff, and then the platform will just be shut down?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a creation not of Facebook's own doing, but of the industry
Yep.
as a whole. And
All right. Now you said we're going to do a part 4,
well, so this then leads us to part 4, which
which we're going to.
is, what if the next big popular feature of the internet? So Web 1 was just like the internet as a concept, right? It was
Yes.
sort of like you can do things. Web 2 was, what if you could be social online?
Okay.
Like that's the next big feature is, what if when I'm reading this article in the Dallas Morning Star or whatever the maybe fictional newspaper is, I could interact with people,
Right.
for better or for worse. Like that's sort of an interesting
Yeah.
thing. That's a feature at least that didn't exist before. And maybe the next big feature on the web is in fact not the metaverse or crypto, but
Which
is in
is
fact trust and accountability on the web. What if
all
that's the
right.
next big feature that everyone wants?
That's the next killer app. All right. And that's going to be our part 4.
I think so.
All right.
Did you have any other questions about that?
I have a million of them, but we don't have time, so I will hold them for our next one. And I will thank everyone for joining us. And if you have comments or questions, Guthrie, where can they reach us?
You can email info@teenbaby.com. Do you think did I talk about enough stuff? Did I talk about too many things?
Yes, but that's all right. You got there
Yeah.
to the end.
I'm
No,
sorry for rambling.
no, you do not have to apologize. I just feel like we're leaving it on a cliffhanger. It's like so we'll see if we can. We'll just do part 4 and see where part 4 takes us.
We'll do part 4.
All right, Guthrie, thank you. It was interesting, and I see where you're coming from now. I didn't know where it was going at the beginning, but now I get it. All right, thank you, and thanks everyone for watching and listening. And we will see you next time. We're always here, LinkedIn Live, doing our Human Tech podcast Wednesdays at noon Central U.S. time.
And we're doing expert tests are now for sale.
Yeah, we have a new service called an expert test. So go to our website, which is theteamw.com,
Yeah.
and look for that and try that. Check it out. All right,
It's on our store.
it's on their store. All right, bye.
Bye.